warm welcome to the Trio, the brand new Power Panel series under the Monday Morning Learning Podcast. In this series, we'll have three experts, three unique perspectives, and one game-changing conversation. Now, this will be once in a month episode and will be published the last Saturday of every month, 5 a.m. IST, for a weekend gala wisdom of insights. Now, in this very first episode, we have three senior management professionals. Nidhi Pratapneni, Senior Vice President, Head of Public Affairs, Head of Product Analytics and Modeling, COP, Site Leader, Wells Fargo. Welcome, Nidhi. Pankaj Rai, Group Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Aditya Birla Management Corporation. And welcome, Pankaj. And Dr. Lalit Sanagavarapu, Chief Product Officer at Big Heel and SecRite. So very warm welcome to three of you. And thank you so much for agreeing on this lunch slot for the trial. Three themes for today's episode. We look at AI-powered decision-making. We look at AI and analytics revolution reshaping work and leadership. And we look at cybersecurity being everyone's job in the future of work. So the first question on the list of questions, Nidhi, will start with you. Questions around how AI and analytics are transforming decision-making and risk management, around AI ethics and responsible AI adoption, and scaling AI adoption while ensuring security and compliance being the biggest challenge. So three of them for you, Nidhi.
Okay, that's quite a big task. I thought we would be staggering it and spreading the questions around. But thank you. Just wanted to point out I'm no longer with Wells Fargo, but had a great 7 years there and a great exposure to the world of banking and implementation of, cutting edge tech, analytics, and now AI in the BFSI world. So, some of the questions that you ask is, AI and analytics is like a placeholder. You typically will say, how is X transforming decision making? And that X takes on different values as time goes along, because it's always, the newest technology. It was big data, it was analytics, it was, the processing times and all of that. So needless to say, and extremely apparent to everyone, that there is already significant impact and benefits that people are seeing from analytics is more old school now, but from AI in decision making and risk management. There was a time when data brought a lot of intelligence to the junior analysts and workers in an organization, because they are the ones who were close to the data, who were close to information. And I think that has been that empowerment has increased tremendously, because again, it is the younger generation which is more fluent with AI techniques, applications, and how to look at the intelligence and use it for the organizational goals. So right there is a tremendous impact on the power of the skill the AI has, so to say, within an organization. And if you go to the traditional model of processes, platforms, and people, all of those are undergoing transformation. As a new technology, AI is now becoming the platform on which work will get done in organizations, within, without, in governance, in customer-facing businesses, in the B2B world, wherever you see, increasingly all platforms, tech platforms will have AI elements in there to make things more faster, more accurate, and actually to just increase the scope of what you can churn through in order to make your organizational decisions. The processes that we talked about, and if you look at specifically risk management, it is the whole initial assessment and exploratory phase where you can look at a lot more data. The whole time-consuming documentation phase, where there are organizations that have armies just working on documentation, and now a lot of that will get done within days, something that took months perhaps. The ability to be more predictive, more proactive, rather than reacting to okay, here is an outlier, here is something we didn't realize would happen. AI is going to safeguard you from a lot of those intangible outlier cases. And then the ability to just connect things across the silos within an organization. So, just these aspects of enabling speed, of automation, enabling, encompassing the whole spectrum of variables, things that a human mind tends to ignore because you tend to follow that 80-20 rule, but AI allows you to sort of boil the ocean to if you put it that way, um, and eventually leading to a more profitable organization. Now the question we have is, are we wanting AI to drive profit for a few or prosperity for all? And that's where we delve into the realm of ethics and managing the risks that AI itself presents, right? So that's the whole domain that one steps into to see, okay, now that we have a new technology, which is game changing, which has been earth shattering, when you look at what the implications are, when you talk about AI ethics, ethics are typically, it is a human aspect because AI is imbued with intelligence, but it's intelligence that has been put in there by humans. So when you talk about AI ethics, I feel personally that it relates back to human ethics because it is all about individuals and human decision making. The question then is, our economies and our nations, are they going to be able to agree on a certain code that governs how AI ethics ought to be implemented? Something like a Geneva Convention, perhaps, and then is there going to be a commitment to adhere to it? Europe has the data privacy laws, California had its laws. What can come into being for AI is something that, there is a lot of discussion about, but we are seeing anyway today in many economies that it's so easy to go rogue. It is so easy to dismiss conventions that have been agreed upon. And, we're in a phase where there's always going to be cycles. There's ups and downs. The status quo will no longer remain. We went from dictatorships and kingdoms to democracy, and, what will ensue after democracy? And this post-democracy world, which also has AI as a superpower or a weapon that can be used for good and bad, then the whole question becomes very philosophical then about, which is, how do you adopt AI? Where do you apply it? What is it going to displace? How is that displacement going to affect, humanity? What is going to power those recommendations? Is it going to be human frailty or the needs of people? Is it going to be, and going back to my question of, is it, profit for some or prosperity for all? And that's sort of something that we are still debating, and there's not going to be a convergence, but it's interesting times that we live in.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Moving on to Pankaj, couple of questions around the role of AI-driven analytics in business, be it generative AI or predictive insights. Why data literacy is a must-have skill across functions, and lack of trust in AI-driven insights and not lack of technology being the biggest challenge, Pankaj.
So I think the one thing that I feel has changed or is possible now, which probably was not as much this thing, is that earlier we have always talked about data-based decision making as the main thing that we all think about. I think the two new words that emerge in my head that I think are more relevant now, possibly because AI and some of these things are available in Gen AI specifically, is experimentation and creativity. So I think in the past, I don't think we were doing a lot of experimentation. People were doing it, but that wasn't seen as a central theme. But I think in this agile world where experimentation is the key to discovering the next version of the truth, I think that has been enabled. So that's one. And secondly, it's the creativity thing, the question that you don't even know of. You can imagine them, you can do things. So I think the art of the possible sort of thing. So I do think that from the past, when we were more bounded by decision that, oh, I have to take the decision, can I get the data and take it? I think today it is possible to iterate, do experiments, and also be creative and think about things that you could not think of before.
Absolutely, Pankaj. Thank you for that. So let's move on to Lalit. Again, three themes are around AI-driven cyber attacks and insider threats and deepfakes. Those are the key threats. How do we deal with them? The importance of zero trust security model and employee awareness, and over reliance on tools while neglecting the human factor being the biggest challenge. Lalit.
Oh, thank you, Ravi. And it's it's an absolute experience, great experience to be with Pankaj, right? They're industry stalwarts, and this is an exciting opportunity to be as a co-panelist here. So first on the security, I think what's interesting is your theme around skills, strategy, security, right? I think the skills and strategy play a very key role in security, right? If you look at zero trust as a word, or if you look at AI-driven security, I think what is falling behind is the skills and the strategy around it. Now, to your question in terms of security, interestingly, the concern around cybersecurity is considered even more important than world hunger, right? After the importance that is being given to geopolitical tensions or the environmental, the third important concern in the world is cybersecurity. That's where it stands today in terms of the importance of the awareness, the importance of what is happening in overall in technology and what it means for cybersecurity, and the impact it is having it almost on every individual. Just in India, I think the stat says the amount of money that is lost in cybersecurity at an individual level is about 14,000 odd crores in last year. These are mind-boggling numbers. And India is not the largest economy in the world. And the numbers in US, UK are even more worrying from cyber crimes. Now, to your question in terms of AI and cybersecurity, I think this has three facets. One, I think the greatness of AI or what AI can do is just being realized across industries, including cybersecurity. One of the key things that we deal in cybersecurity is obviously the voluminous of the data that we have from various data sources. And the only way is solving the problems through AI. Now, the moment you start talking about AI, the biggest concern is what is that in terms of accuracy or what is that in terms of false positives? Now, and cybersecurity, either you're attacked or you just don't know you're attacked, or probably you're not attacked. Now, if it falls into that case where you don't know whether you're attacked or you're attacked, but you cannot identify, there is that balance between what is that I can adopt of AI in cybersecurity and what is that I cannot. But hitherto, I think there is definitely growing need for AI in cybersecurity. The other angle that is coming out in AI and cybersecurity is, I think while it's a powerful technology strategy tools that are coming in, the way that data is being used is also going into the wrong hands. Right? For a long time in the world, there are only some defined ways of cyber attacks on the industries, and the top 10 were called OWASP top 10. Then came mobile OWASP top 10. But interestingly, in AI, ever since ChatGPT came out in November 2022, in terms of the public domain, quickly there are top 10 cyber attacks because of usage of AI. Right? So there is that angle of cyber attacks on AI. And there is also an angle of how AI is being used to do a cyber attack. So AI for good in cyber attacks, to curtail cyber attacks, AI being used to launch cyber attacks. So the variations that you can create of malware is much easier through AI. The number of phishing emails that have increased because of ChatGPT is a mind-boggling numbers. Worldwide, we are seeing about almost 100 times increase in phishing emails because of ChatGPT. Or not ChatGPT, I would say in general about any of these LLMs and Gen AI technologies. Now that's one angle in terms of AI and cybersecurity. So your next point in terms of zero trust. I think for the period that I spent in banking technology, what we always believed is trust but verify. When you give a loan or when you want to onboard a customer, there is a general view of you trust, but you go and verify their do their KYC, do whatever it is in terms of validating. What is changing in cybersecurity is zero trust, which means I never trust and I always verify. So whether it is user who is accessing a device, whether they're accessing application over the network or trying to do something with the data, I do not trust any of them. User, device, network, application, data. So in that zero trust, I think that's becoming one key strategy that organizations are adopting in terms of what is that they could protect the important asset, which is the data. So that's definitely an angle in terms of what is happening because of zero trust. But what is also happening, interestingly, because of zero trust, because I'm not trusting anything in the enterprise, so many tools have come out. And now with so many tools that are coming out, which one is telling the truth is always a concern. So to your point, in terms of the tools in cybersecurity, a large banking organization would have not less than 700 cybersecurity tools. So do I believe firewall? Do I believe my SOC setup? Do I believe my PIM? Do I believe some XYZ tool? It's becoming definitely a challenge for the people who are in the specialist in cybersecurity. I think there is definitely a need for rationalization. There is definitely a consolidation that is happening. There is a platformization that is happening. So I think that's the way that the world is trying to solve with so many tools that are there in cybersecurity. That's the perspective that I have.
Thank you, Lalit. So in the next segment, it's a guest-to-guest question. So Pankaj can ask one question each to Lalit and Nidhi. Same with all of you guys. So there's two questions. Pankaj, you can go ahead.
Okay, let me ask maybe Nidhi first and then Lalit next, because that's the order that you set it up. So Nidhi, while you have been in analytics, you've also been in, domains like sustainability and corporate communication and branding and marketing, and not just in Wells Fargo, even before that. So when you look at the intersection of AI and some of the functions that you have been a part of, chiefly I would say marketing, branding, sustainability, and so forth. What are some of the changes or opportunities that you perceive in those domains where AI can probably help, or if you think AI can be a risk? Because I suspect that everything and everyone is being touched by AI, and many a time we don't specifically speak about those functions or businesses, how they are getting impacted. So I'm very keen to know your observation or reflection on the domain that you have been associated with. You are on mute.
Yeah. Thanks, Pankaj. And I've been talking to a lot of people from that sphere, and I realized that AI has been quite a boon for them because, especially entrepreneurs or individuals or small organizations and NGOs that are often so strapped for time to get through so much that they need to do. Because if you look at an NGO, that we would fund a lot of those in across MNCs, they are always they have reporting requirements, they have compliance requirements for their donors. Just being able to do that much faster is something that they have. Now they talk about AI helping them with that. They would often be strapped for creative talent. So if I run shelter homes for kids and I want to raise money for them, how do I tell a story? And I can now use ChatGPT and just go create a very moving deck or a storytelling sequence to understand how do I go and talk to people to raise funds for myself. So that whole marketing aspect or the communication aspect, now these small organizations feel so empowered, and it's allowed them to hasten their time to market, you could say, to be able to do that. So I think it's been tremendous. People who are marketing consultants can now create logos. If I want to do something, I can go create a logo at the drop of a hat. If you look at another sphere, which is HR, there is so much legalese around it. When I enter into contracts with vendors and partners, the whole negotiation or the need for a lawyer, figuring out where to go, who to go to. And now you have that at your fingertips. You can draw up a contract, you can look at comparables, you can figure out what are the nuances to it, and be a lot more informed, and also economize, because now you're using maybe just 2 hours of a lawyer's time versus 20 hours that you may have needed to earlier. So I think a lot of this, easy accessibility to content and to expert information has really helped this sector.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, I think that, I see that common theme of what they say, consumerization of technology, from mainframe to laptops to, everything being available to an individual and enhancing their productivity. And I think that trend seems to continue with Gen AI and others. So good. I think as more and more individuals become more empowered, I think they don't have to rely on expensive systems or central resources and so on and so forth. So it's, I think, a good thing to know that at least those organizations which are strapped for resources can benefit from these trends. So thank you, Nidhi. Lalit, for you, I have now been in Aditya Birla Group, which is also a large manufacturing conglomerate. So many of us have sort of seen cybersecurity as an area, for a long while. I think what I'm observing now is that in the world of machines and factories, which are all getting interconnected, because what we are doing now here is connecting IT and OT data. And frankly, I wasn't exposed to the operations technology OT world, which is the world of machine and their data. But now we are increasingly connected because we want to take integrated decision making using both of those data. And we have also heard of, some bad actors in other countries taking control of a refinery or a mine or a submarine and this, that, and the other, right? So if you think about that context in corporates and maybe in India and so on, how do you see the role of cybersecurity specifically in this integrated context where ERP and machines and pretty much and external data sources also coming in? In fact, our Indian government is bringing in DPI. So I foresee a world in India where there's sources outside, we are connected to them, our factories, our ERP. So in that sort of hugely interconnected world, how is the role of cybersecurity that you see changing from, at least we used to think of even only in the world of ERP, and now with this big wide world, what is changing? What's going to happen? What should we be concerned about or sort of learn about?
This is becoming increasingly obvious in terms of how this interconnected world and people are sitting across, right? I think that's where zero trust plays a very critical role, because at some point in time in a bank, we used to have everything within that branch or within the data center. Now people are hybrid, remote, machines are remote. Machines are not just bought, but also given on build, operate, transfer, whatever those models are, right? I think OT, IT is definitely a very important. We know a case where one of the largest automobile manufacturer has their own SOC for monitoring all the vehicles that they have sold in the world, because they are trying to see which kind of an attack happens on their cars, right? There was a very interesting article a few days back or a few months back, I would say, where the toothbrushes that someone was selling in Switzerland was going through a DDoS attack. So that guy was not able to brush because the attacker was upset that he was not paid right by the company and started launching a DDoS attack on those toothbrushes. Right? I think that they are definitely, now it's a connected world. I think it becomes more obvious as we start seeing it. DPI also plays a very critical role, and the way that world is trying to solve is through zero trust. I do not trust machine. I do not trust the user. And in fact, from insider attacks also, if you have seen, worldwide, they're saying 40%, anywhere between 30 to 40% are because of the insider attacks, which means the guy sitting in the premises, your own employee probably, or your own outsourced employee sitting in your setup, probably there is a compromise on that weakest machine. So yeah, I think OT, IT is an integrated view. Zero trust is probably one strategy in terms of trying to keep a control, monitoring on all these setups.
Yeah, it's very hard for someone like me who starts with trust everyone unless proven otherwise. But in this world, I think you have to distrust everyone unless proven otherwise. So my default hypothesis has to change. Thank you, Lalit.
Nidhi, over to you. Your questions.
Yeah, so a question for Pankaj, and so my question is more related to the visibility you have across the entire Aditya Birla, family of businesses, and how are you seeing, people think about AI? What are the change management aspects? And are they different depending upon, the businesses that you interact with? The challenges may be different depending on either leadership or the nature of industry that they are in.
Yeah. I think as you grow older with gray hair, you realize that many things actually are the same pattern. They just get repeated or manifest in different ways, but the fundamental remain the same. So if you think about technology and adoption, whenever a new technology shows up, we tend to sort of just figure out what to do with it. We don't know the full potential. I mean, even when the metro came along, we all just went and took a ride. We didn't have to go anywhere. We just said, okay, there is something out there. Let's go from one. I still remember I went to Delhi with my kids. I took a train ride to another place and came back. I had no reason to do that. And I think we do that with a lot of new technology. And over time, then you figure out on a day-to-day basis or longer term basis how it is going to be used. So I think this also resonates with a book that I read, and many of you know of Dr. Alok Agarwal's Rai Analytics. He's written a book on 100 years of AI. And one of the points he makes is that any technology takes almost a generation, 20 years to get sort of really appreciated and understood and embraced by the population. So it's all about change management. So technology has enormous potential, whether it was steam engine or electric motor or internet or now AI. Now, sometimes these days, these things are getting adopted faster, but in general, there is a long tail of adoption and so forth. So I think in our group, it's no different. Some of the businesses which are fast moving, consumer oriented, fashion and finance, they have no option but to adopt some amount of data analytics AI in any case, right? Some of the older, more stable businesses in the world of manufacturing where you are in a leadership position, clearly, there is no main pressure to adopt that. At the same time, there's an opportunity. So I think many places where you are in a very competitive and market, there's a pressure because everyone is breathing down your neck and you need to continue to do something, and your ability or need to experiment is high. But in some places where the pressure is low, I think the pressure is not there, but the opportunity is high. So I think we have to also adopt different strategies when we work with group companies to say that if you are in a very strong position, then we have to talk about what is the possible opportunity, because you can't say that there is a threat because they are in a good position, they are doing well. You can't tell them that someone is coming after you, but you have to then bring a almost like a carrot approach to say, what, this is possible, that is possible, your people can have a good time. As you grow, you don't need to hire more people, you can be more productive and things like that, right? So those are the methods that you use to drive change. Well, on the other side, it's slightly more easier because they see that things are happening at a rapid pace and their need to experiment and try more is there. So like I said, manufacturing takes a different approach, takes longer time also, because if you think about the manufacturing businesses, their life cycle, the cycle time is much higher. Yeah, even, Nidhi, you would remember that when we have been in a previous organization, when the business was an enterprise business versus the consumer business, the consumer businesses are by definition changing fast, and therefore the need or ability to experiment is higher. An enterprise cycle is longer and people take longer to adopt. So I think our change management approach has to change. And of course, the biggest thing that we need to do as a team is to really get into the business and understand where we can create value, because you can't just excite people based on technology, because that will be short lived, like taking a train ride.
Mm-hmm.
You can only excite them by showing that how their business can fundamentally transform, and that is a co-creation activity. You have to engage, you will discuss and debate and all of that. It's not as if one day, because many people say, oh, you come and tell me what I can do. No, it's not a one transaction discussion. We engage, and as through those discussions, new thing emerge. So I think this whole idea of change from waterfall to agile, which has happened in software, I see the same change happening now, that we have to tell people that you can't do one big thing. You have to do a lot of small things, which is what agile is all about. You have to keep responding, reacting, engaging, and so on and so forth. So initially, when our team got set up, and typically the traditional IT approach was, oh, you guys are tech guys, come here, gather requirements, or tell us what we can do, and go and do it. And we said, no, that's not how this works. This requires a fundamentally different approach, and that I think is required in technology also, but more so in this. So I think for us, the main thing is making people understand what it is, why it is, and how it has to be used. So we actually have a what we call the 3W framework of ways of thinking, ways of working, and ways of doing, that you have to change at all those three layers to make transformation happen. So that's the learning here so far.
Thank you, Pankaj. You said when you have gray hair, you realize the fundamentals. So I think some
You
of
have a
this.
long time to get there.
Yeah.
All black.
Getting there. So should I go with the question for Lalit, or should we give Lalit a
Go
chance?
ahead with Lalit. You can ask questions, Lalit.
So Lalit, a very different kind of a question. These days movies, and especially Hollywood movies, are all about cyber and what the futuristic world is going to look like and all of that. So I wanted to ask you, which movie does your life most look like, and why?
That's an interesting one. I think I don't know if you remember, there was a movie of Sandra Bullock, The Net, long back. That movie talks about how her identity was impersonified. So they change her SSN, they change her all her, and they create another person. I think that misinformation, I mean, this is at least a movie 20 years back. What we are seeing, deep fakes, misinformation, is almost getting there. So you're absolutely right. These days, even a Telugu movie talks about some cyber attack. I mean, Telugu movies
Hackers and
or RRR and those kind of Bahubali kind of hits. I can't discount Telugu movies in terms of technology implementation, but I think every movie is today talking about some cyber angle to it. But yeah, The Net was one such movie that started triggering in terms of what is changing in terms of people understanding about cybersecurity.
So I think there must be some movie today which shows the world that the way it's going to be 20 years later.
All the Marvel movies, right? Yeah, I think they're, or the recent Kalki movie that probably you would have seen.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Over to you, Lalit. Your questions to Pankaj and
So I'll start with Nidhi then. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you have seen public affairs, sustainability, analytics, corporate communication, probably some of the ones that I can relate to that I've seen you in the past. Which probably I'm not asking you the general one, but which of those ones most excites you? And
so I think in all of these, there were different elements that excited me, and it's a bit of a complicated answer because part of the dynamic is that being in a GCC world, you don't get to actually see action on the ground, right? Because you're part of a huge organization, your customers may be oceans away. So the real impact that you have, you get to see it in analytics. For me, it was through the data and through the people. When it was communications, it was through the storytelling aspect of how you craft a story and how you see the story land with people, because there were campaigns that we would launch internally for the offices in India and the Philippines, and there, whether it could be a risk management campaign or just understanding the life story of a leader, that craft of telling the story and making something more live and real was what excited me. And then when you come to the sustainability and the social impact, I think there something that just made the bulb light up for me was this modular hospital, which was an innovation that came up through IIT Madras Incubation Center. And they created these modular, in different sizes of hospitals that just could be built up within months, and coincidentally happened to be COVID time. So it got built and it was sitting there, and they were like, okay, now what do we do with it? And then it was sent across the country from Tamil Nadu to Bihar, and then it got operationalized. So that piece of, I mean, we do a lot of CSR, we do training, but then the ability to use the power of an organization to fund R&D, and then to see that whole value chain come full circle. That was really amazing for me. And another one that we had supported was the robotic alternative to manual scavenging, again an IIT Madras incubated project. So I think in all of these, it is seeing how the impact lands, and the actual recipient of all the efforts that you are making through your work is what gave me most joy.
So the inside you is coming out, not the corporate outlook, but
yeah, that's not. I don't need to have a corporate me anymore. So
the social impact to the last mile is coming out in those conversations.
Yeah, I think for analytics teams, it was people and their careers, and if they felt happy about where they landed a year or two later, that gave me and
it's the kick.
Yeah.
Sure. So now to Pankaj. So obviously, Pankaj, not again AI question, but I want to see if you're using data. The other day we were talking about, right, in the industry, people do not know Pankaj, probably they're not relevant in the industry. Right. So I mean, you are world famous, right? And how does that network, how does this, any tricks that you could suggest becoming that world famous? And is there anything data that is you're using to make it happen? If it is.
Are you familiar with the golden circle of Simon Sinek, the why, how, and what, three circles? So
No.
there's this famous video which was in the top 10 in TED, and I have kind of really liked it 10, 15 years ago when I saw it, and I use it a lot in everything that I do or wherever I communicate. So he has these three circles: why in the middle, how the next one, and what is the outside. And frankly, this you can apply to anything and anyone. So it can be a company where the core is the purpose and what is what they do. It could be an individual. The core again could be your purpose, and externally is what you do. So many a time what we tend to do, because the what is visible, the outside is visible. Sometimes the how is also known, but the why is invisible. Many a time the why is also invisible to the company or the individual also, which is that whole purpose, or what is it really, what do you stand for? So I think that if you really reflect, again, maybe gray hair talking, that mostly we are driven by the why. What is an outcome? And many a time people are trying to chase the outcome, and that doesn't work. So it's like saying that, Apple is a great company. It's a $3 trillion company. How do I become a $3 trillion company? I don't think Tim Cook or Steve Jobs can tell you. They were following a passion which resulted into a $3 trillion company. So I think what we need to figure out is what is it that we are trying to do. The outcome is not something that we wanted exactly in the same way. So what you are kind of alluding to, my persona, is some of the outcome that you observe, which at some level I did not intend them to be that way. In fact, these days I find that a bit of a distraction actually. While you may feel it is a good thing, to me, actually, I would rather be hidden and not known, because I don't necessarily like the publicity. I mean, there are people who enjoy publicity. I don't really like publicity. I would rather engage in a one-on-one dialogue with you, with no one watching, no one knowing. To me, that dialogue itself is a end in itself. Now, if that dialogue gets posted by Ravi and 50 people comment on it, it's okay, but not necessarily something that I really enjoy or cherish. So that's how it is. So I don't know whether what you see is the pursuit that I am seeking. And like I said, at this point in time, it seemed more like a distraction rather than something that I mean, some amount of, sharing best practices is not bad. I mean, nothing wrong in it. But sometimes it becomes too much, then it becomes a distraction. So I actually don't know whether I would really advise that we should do that. And at least for me, at least certainly it's not a goal. So if you ask me, I am just curious about anything and everything. And I say that I collect the dots. How those dots connect later, I don't know. But they do end up connecting. So sometimes they connect because I have to make introductions to someone. Sometimes they connect if I'm trying to make an insight out of something. And they connect organically. I don't take any notes. I don't save anything. I don't necessarily read too many books. I just connect lots of small dots from here and there. I mean, people are, this thing that amazed that I don't read books. I just don't. I haven't read the Bhagavad Gita, although I quote it a lot of times. I haven't read many books that I quote one or two lines from them all the time because I just resonated with that dot within that book. So to me, it's very different from what I think what persona that people create out of what they see, and which is true for any company or anyone. So I think the why for me is just curiosity and trying to make a difference where I can. So I think I don't know, you Nidhi you probably knows me better than any of you, and maybe she can comment, because sometimes other people can comment on you more than you can, because from the inside you don't know what you are really doing. You're just doing what makes sense, but maybe some outsiders can comment better. So in some senses, I'm asking Nidhi to also contribute to this answer for a better this thing.
So I think, I think everyone who knows Pankaj will have their theory of what makes him tick and how he operates. And there is also this theory that, in Harry Potter, there is this talk of a Horcrux. So, and one of the challenges for Harry Potter is to put this Horcrux together. So, the people, each of those individuals sees one aspect of you, and that entirety of who you are is the summation of all of that, of all the individuals you've interacted with. And so in your case, probably amalgamating and bringing it all together would be a huge task because of the reach that you have. My personal view, I think at the core of it, there is a very strong intellect, and added on with a very strong sense of empathy and curiosity. And I think these three things are what sort of, depending on the environment he's in, the three get triggered and the outcomes can just emerge from there.
Well, I will also use these three words that Nidhi said: intellect, empathy, and curiosity.
That's a magic question. I know what is magic question. That's so lovely. So what an incredible discussion we had today on the Trio, the Power Panel series. We explored deep insights into AI-driven decision-making, the transformative power of analytics, and the crucial role of cybersecurity in shaping the future of work. A big thank you to our expert panel, Pankaj, Nidhi, and Dr. Lalit, for sharing their wisdom and perspectives with us. And just call to action for the listeners as such. If you really enjoyed this episode, do follow, share, and drop us a comment on what resonated most with you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and see you in the next episode of the Monday Morning Learning Podcast, The Trial. Thank you so much, all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi, for
Bye.
even bringing the three of us together, because we were colleagues in Wells Fargo, but we haven't been talking to each other enough. So I think this was a good opportunity.
I think we should do an internal
Yes.
podcast series.
Without Ravi, we should meet up.
Yeah. We can invite him. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.